This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here today with our old friend, Mr. Charles Baker of Stratus, Charles Baker Wines, and of course, Crew Wine Imports. How are you today, Charles?
Terrific. Thank you, Jamie. How are you?
I'm quite well. I'm all the better for seeing your cherubic face.
Well, that's if you had asked me 4 months ago, I'd have had a different answer. If we look back, if you think back to March and April, every day was a new landscape, and yesterday seemed like an eternity behind us. And now things have sort of, throughout the summer, things got into some kind of rhythm. But of course, now we're heading into another sort of scenario of the unknown. And so how are we doing? Well, we're working, we're alive, we're above ground, which is important. The team is healthy, the team is safe, the team is working, which is important.
Yeah.
The wine business, we're sort of, I'm very careful about what I say. Because all we do is think about our friends in the restaurant industry who, don't have as much certainty in their lives.
Yeah, of course.
I sent a note out to my team a couple of days ago. We were just reminding each other, everybody stay the course, keep your masks on, be safe, and da-da-da-da. And I reminded everybody about a meeting we had way back in January where this was really just a sideline news item at the time. And I brought it up in the meeting at the beginning because I had this, this vision that this thing was going to be bigger. Not that I'm some kind of clairvoyant, but
did I not hint that I thought it was going to be quite a big thing?
Well, we both did. I bought masks in early January.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, and I did the whole Costco load up in January. And the masks were really just for I waited until it became front page of the Globe and Mail. I'd heard about it in December, like all of us did, and I said, okay, the day it goes on the front page of the Globe, I'm going to head down to the local medical supply store and buy enough masks to get me through all the flights that we wine agents do in the spring and the winter to the trade fairs in Europe. And I counted how many airplanes we were going to be on, and I bought enough. Little did we know that we would be using those bloody masks.
Yes, yeah.
And in any case, back then it was there was so much uncertainty. When the restaurants closed their doors in, what is it, the second week of March, I guess it was, we had to pivot. We just simply had to figure out other ways of conducting our business. And we're a small agency. We didn't have a lot of private clients at the time. We really depended on our restaurant partners. And really unfortunately for them, they had their livelihood shut down in front of them. So for an agency, what we simply did was, we became milkmen. We started knocking on doors and selling wines to people who didn't want to venture out. And that seemed to get us through. So it hasn't been the rosiest of years, but certainly we kept our lights on, which can't be said for everyone, I suppose, in the restaurant trade. So I keep coming back to our friends in the restaurant trade who have had to really reevaluate how they conduct business, really figure out how they're going to stay around through this going into next year. So,
and how do you think that's going to go? I mean, you have a restaurant background, and about the tight margins that restaurants run on, and with the current social distancing regulations. I keep on repeating this in the interviews that I do, but how are these businesses possibly viable?
Well, they have to practice social distancing, but they're being forced fiscal distancing during this period, right? Because their customers, as much as Ontarians want to support restaurants, we've taken hospitality for granted for so long. Right. As consumers, we just assume that people, it wasn't our problem. They earn a stable living, blah, 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 but they don't. There's really no safety net in the restaurant trade. And I'm not talking necessarily about, the fortunate ones who work in, big ticket restaurants earning lots of gratuities. I'm talking about the dish pits and the bussers and the people who really are living on fairly modest wages working in restaurants. Thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, who suddenly find themselves in a pretty nasty predicament in terms of their income, their natural income. So how do I feel about the restaurant trade? I was in it. I was in it for my entire life before the wine scene came along, and I really transitioned to wine because I felt it. The restaurant trade was for me a little I didn't have enough of a vision to make it a career for myself. So I 25 years ago, I packed my bags and moved to Niagara. How are they? Ask me more. How am I as a consumer going to feel about restaurants? Because, like I said, we've taken the restaurants for granted for so long that they'll just be there, and that we can make a reservation and not show up if we don't want to. And
I hear you.
Et cetera. And now we're asking them to keep their doors open and operate at 25% capacity. How do they stock the fridges? How do they staff the floor? How do they keep people from getting sick? All these things. It's not fair. We need a much bigger plan for the restaurant trade if we want to have our cake and eat it too after this is all over. So I talked to a lot of our friends in the restaurant trade, and it's been a beautiful summer, the hottest on record. The sun came out and didn't go down until a week ago. And the patios, those that had patios, managed to salvage a little bit of business, but it's not enough. It's not going to be enough for them. And customers aren't going to want to sit inside. My gut is I want them to, we want to, but there's some restaurants that have done a really great job of the inside, to provide a safe environment. I'm thinking about my friend Ryan Crawford at Rufino's in Niagara-on-the-Lake. His restaurant has been set up in such a way that you would feel absolutely safe to walk into, because physically and from a design perspective, he's done a magnificent job of doing that. And so he will convince folks in Niagara to go into his restaurants. But who's going to get on an elevator to go to dinner if the restaurant's even?
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Right. So there's so many variables here. And
are you in any rush to go to eat indoors in a restaurant?
I am. I want to take my wife out on a date in a restaurant where we can.
I hear you, but I'm not. I don't feel comfortable with that right now.
No, I think so. I think we have to look. We have to say we are, and I am.
Yeah.
But we have to convince others that it is safe. That our restaurant partners are doing everything they can to keep people safe, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Right.
We just have to convince people that it's okay to go in there, because as long as people keep 6 feet apart, as long as people keep their distance, wear their masks when appropriate, use hand sanitizer, all those things, people are going to be fine. We just have to make sure that customers go in. And look, customers, if you can't go in, order takeout. Pick up some food and take it home on a Friday night or on a Monday night, right? That'll keep those who are operating. That'll give them an additional source of income.
Yeah.
No, this is like the year that disappeared financially, for not just disappeared, but actually crushed a lot of people. But it's like you have to sort of press pause. That was a cassette player I pressed pause on. You have to press pause for a year on the idea that, financially things are okay. They're not. They're really, it's a real trickle down. And the restaurants they're like the canary in the coal mine, right? So things go wrong in an economy. I've lived through them all. I've lived through, 3 or 4 in my restaurant trade of these recessions, and this is the big one. This is the granddaddy of all slowdowns in the restaurant trade.
Speaking of hospitality, how have things changed at Stratus, at the winery, the cellar door sales and the like?
Well, that's it's so interesting. Like back in March and April, now that's not when our tourist season is in full swing. Back in March and April, the agency crew, where we have all these fantastic growers the world over, as you know, and it's been tough on them too, by the way, not just the restaurant. The trickle down is from the dining room table where you're sitting. goes right through. The thread is long. It goes right through to wine growers.
Of course. Yep.
Goes right through to cattle farms, to produce. It goes right through. And back in March and April, we managed to pivot and sell wine to private customers while the winery was quiet. But then what happened? Well, wineries as a collective in Niagara really had to go work by appointment only. Thousands of people that would find themselves flocking to Napa, Sonoma, Tuscany, Provence. They weren't flocking anywhere.
Yep.
They were staying right to flock here instead. So we ended up with a wine-thirsty clientele. Plus, you ended up with a clientele that were thirsty just to get out and do something special. So wine country became an incredible destination this summer. And I think all the feedback I've had is that wineries have had a really terrific summer for visitation. And Stratus had a really terrific summer. And I noticed when I drop in there, and I don't work there full time at the winery on a day-to-day basis, but when I drop in, I noticed that the guests it was more of an event. They had a reservation. They were dressing up a little more. It was really a special thing. And it really brought us in wine country to a place where we really should be. It's a special place to go to wine country, to sit down and have a glass of wine or a Tudor tasting. And it really came to the forefront this summer at the winery. So my colleague Suzanne and her team, who have been on the front line down there for months, have done a magnificent job of receiving people at the winery. We've had different programs in place, food programs. And I don't want to sound like a commercial for Niagara, but it was really, and it's still going on. We're still in the middle of it, right? It's only October. It's harvest. We're in the middle of harvest. So the winery has had a good summer, thankfully.
Now, with regards to the technical side of winemaking and the like, how are things going with harvest, and how are things like what happens about your seasonal workers and the like?
Well, look, we've had some, that like this when you started this interview 20 minutes ago, you asked how it's been during COVID's. Now we're 8 months into this thing now. This is not a month or two discussion. We'll have a year under our belt soon. And seasonal workers, the team that comes that usually traditionally starts pruning way back in February, March. Well, they couldn't come in. And at that point, listen, the vineyard doesn't stop for anybody, does it? Pruning became the most essential exercise at that time. And we had people from our team from other parts of the company jump into the vineyard and prune for a month. It was amazing. And it really is, if you want to learn about wine growing and wine making, just be out there pruning, and you'll learn a heck of a lot about the life cycle of vines. So it was really great for some of our team to be able to go out there. And in time, we managed to get our team in after quarantine and et cetera, and then they jumped in. So they're out there now. And we also had a slow, that was only March, April. They've been there all summer now. We've had an amazing vintage at this point. I don't know what everybody else is telling you, but we had a slow start. It was pretty cool in March. Everybody remember you were standing in rain, trying to get into your local grocery store. But the sun came out shortly after that, and we have had one of the best growing seasons ever. Dry, low disease pressure, clean fruit, ripe fruit. Yields were lower than normal. And the quality coming in is really spectacular at this point. I picked Riesling a week ago, and that was in September. We don't normally pick in September, so that was an early harvest. And we're into it now. We're full into harvest, and the quality is superb. So that'll be, one bright light of this whole thing, is that we have a great vintage coming into tank.
During the pandemic, you actually launched a couple of wines in cans, did you not?
I did. Who told you that? It's supposed to be a secret.
You sent me some of them. They were great.
I was worried about you, Jamie. The COVID can.
The COVID can, right?
So yeah, my tagline was CB got canned. And look, it was a project. It was a format that we all agreed was an interesting way to go. And so we started this obviously before any rumblings of a virus circulating.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a good choice. We put my Riesling, just our basic Niagara Peninsula Riesling CBR, into a can, 250 ml slim can, and we put our rosé, our wild ass rosé, into the same. So we have these two cans that suddenly became terrific options for takeout at restaurants. They're now in the LCBO. We're slowly getting around to the different stores to make sure they're on the shelves. And it's just another format, single serve. You know, it allows, if you have these at the house, you're not opening a full bottle if you really only want a glass. And this is a commercial, yeah. CB got canned. Good fresh Riesling, good delicious rosé. I don't have one to show you. I'd show you right here, but I don't.
Well, when you sent them for me to try out, I was thinking, oh, that's fantastic. That will get them into music festivals now. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
No music festival. But how about on the dock? You know, the summer and a big ice bucket. And you walk around and you walk by bars and restaurants who have their offerings for takeout now, because this takeout option has really helped some restaurants keep the lights on. They have their cans of beer and their offerings of drinks lined up on the barrel head, and now they can put wine out there. It's growing fast. And, you know, I felt really good about putting wine in cans, because just like when wine on tap became popular a few years ago, we were worried that people would think it's just the cheapest option, but it doesn't have to be. You know, the containers, the packaging, both for kegs and cans, is high quality. And having established a very good reputation for our single vineyard Rieslings, I felt pretty comfortable having a COVID can of Riesling as well. So they're a nice alternative, and it became one of the silver linings in all this.
I was about to speak about silver linings. What is the most wonderful thing that you have gleaned or learned or experienced since March throughout this pandemic?
Well, I don't know about other people, but you know, we're closer to home now. We kept it closer to home. Normally, as you know, I've traveled a lot. Yeah. So my son, my 10-year-old, got a lot more of his dad over the last 6 months than he might even have cared to have at this point. You know, careful what you ask for. And, you know, we just not circled the wagons, but we just spent more time together as a family. We spent more time at home. And, you know, you just had to, I don't know, block out the noise of the big commercial world out there. Look after your business, look after yourself, and look after each other. And what's the silver lining? We ran out in March and bought every kind of sports equipment we could find, so that right, so we could toss a football or play frisbee, or we put a basketball net on our garage pad outside. And my kid now, I can't beat him at 21 anymore. That's a silver lining. He doesn't miss. And back in March, I couldn't say that. I thought I was the alpha ball player in the house. Yeah. But that's changed. So, you know, there's so many nice things. It's way more personal than it is commercial. And look, there's enough chaos out there in the world. And there are enough bad people out there in the world, unfortunately, many of them at the helms of governments, that, you know, we feel here in Ontario, you know, I think in our team at Stratus and at Crew, and everybody's healthy, knock on wood, and everybody's listening to each other, and we're taking it as our responsibility, not as some imposed rule, to keep each other in good shape.
Well, Charles Baker, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. Will be good to have another glass of wine, socially distanced glass of wine with you the next time I'm in the city.
can I say something?
Yes.
Can I? Order takeout from your restaurants. If you and if you can, go to your restaurants and eat in their dining rooms. Let's support them as much as we can.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Love you. Take care.